Hello, welcome to What's the Tea with ACP. So, just FYI, we had a little bit of technical difficulties and we are kind of getting everything figured out right now. Currently, we are waiting for our good friend Frank to get on, but we have our other two guests in the waiting room. And today's discussion is going to be about discussing our identity and how our identity is defined by the intersectionality of being Black, queer, and singing artists. So the premise of What's the Tea with ACP is that it's a pride-filled web series where we feature artists and chat about pride, identity, and their experience as a member of the LGBTQIA community. I was going to give a little introduction of our guests, but first I'm going to talk to you about what what the word identity means, what the word intersectionality means, and what the word queer means. Because we kind of have lived with these terms, and for the viewers who are watching, we want to make sure that you're aware and kind of are in the know about what these terms mean. So first, I'm going to start with identity. So Merriam-Webster definition defines identity as the distinguishing character or personality of an individual, individuality, the relation established between the psychological identification, the condition of being the same with something described or asserted, or a sameness of essential or generic character, oneness, an equation that is satisfied for all values and of all symbols. So that's what our identity is. It's the things that help identify us as individual persons. Now, the word queer is a little bit of a complicated word. For people who are maybe a little bit older or aren't very familiar with the term as it stands currently, being queer within the LGBTQIA spectrum, which is lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, intersex, asexual spectrum, means it's kind of an umbrella term. It started off originally as a term that was used to mean something strange or something that is uneasy or uncertain. And as time went on, that term started to become identified with gay, lesbian, trans individuals. So it took on a even more negative and derogatory term related to individual peoples. Within the span of the last 20 to 30 years, the term has been reclaimed by the LGBTQ community. And now it's used as an umbrella term to house anything that's outside of the heteronormative, or what people who are heterosexual or have heterosexual ideals think. So basically, it's an umbrella term that encompasses LGBTQ, and that is what queer means. Now, the term intersectionality. It's a fairly new term, and the best way I think to describe it is taking all of the different aspects of one person or a group of peoples and putting them into instead of just addressing one issue of discrimination, it addresses all of them together. We actually have a short video that really describes intersectionality in a way that's easily digestible. And I think that it would definitely help you as the viewer see where we're coming from in our own space of being intersectional with our identities as queer, Black, and performing artists. So that video is coming up shortly. And it's coming up. Here we go. All right. Just a cute little, YouTube 1-2. It's gonna kind of inform you a little bit.
What is intersectionality? Intersectionality is a way of understanding social relations by examining intersecting forms of discrimination. This means acknowledging that social systems are complicated and that many forms of oppression, like racism, sexism, and ageism, might be present and active at the same time in a person's life. Everyday approaches to building equality tend to focus on one type of discrimination, for instance, sexism, and then work to address only that specific concern. But while the career of a young, white, and able-bodied woman might improve with gender equality protections, an older, Black, disabled lesbian may ableism and homophobia in the workplace. Intersectionality is about understanding and addressing all potential roadblocks to an individual or group's well-being. But it's not as simple as just adding up oppressions and addressing each one individually. Racism, sexism, and ableism exist on their own, but when combined, they compound and transform the experience of oppression. Intersectional unique oppressions exist, but is also dedicated to understanding how they change in combination. The roots of intersectionality lie within the Black feminist movement, with legal scholar Kelly Crenshaw originating the term. Crenshaw felt that anti-racist and feminist movements were both overlooking the unique challenges faced by Black women. She stated that legislation about race is framed to protect Black men, and legislation about sexism is understood to protect white women. So simply combining racism and sexism together does not therefore protect Black women. Intersectional theory is across a range of social divisions and also to understandings of domination, such as those associated with whiteness, masculinity, and heterosexuality. Identities, and it's not a simple answer to solving problems around equality and diversity. It is, however, an essential framework as we truly engage with issues around privilege and power and work to bring them into the open. Intersectionality means listening to others, examining our own privileges, and asking questions about who may be excluded or adversely affected by our work. As importantly, it means taking measurable action to invite, include, and center the voices and work of marginalized individuals.
So, oh, dropped my headphone, child. So, intersectionality, like it said, kind of combines all of the different aspects of people who are discriminated against, not just one aspect of their person. So that's just giving you a little bit of background on what these terms that we'll be discussing mean. So let's move on to introducing our guests. First, we have the wonderful Jermaine Woodard Jr. He is a professional chorister, baritone, and I'm gonna have him come on, and I'm gonna read you a little bit of his bio. All right, hey Jermaine, how are you?
Hello.
Good, good. There's a
Can you hear
little
me
bit of a
okay?
delay, but that's okay. Yep, it'll all kind of sync up as we go along.
Okay.
Awesome. So let's talk about you a little bit. Jermaine's pronouns are he, him, his. So something that we'd like to discuss is pronouns. What is your identity? What is your identifier? He goes by he, him, his. He's a Portsmouth, Virginia native. He devotes himself to an eclectic professional singing career in New England, primarily Hartford County. His choral affiliates include Voce Inc., correct?
Voce.
Voce Inc., Concora, Cathedral of St. Joseph's Schola Cantorum,
Scola Cantorum. Close enough.
Schola Cantorum, bloop. The Composers Choir, Consonare, right? Consonare.
Yes, you nailed that.
Yes. Consonare, Connecticut's Voices of
Consanity.
Consanity, honey. You know he's got a lot of credentials up here now. Okay. And Vox Futura. He is a baritone section leader at Asylum Hill Congregational Church and the Hartford Chorale. So he is diversifying the voice here, there, and everywhere. Some other highlights include Rossini's Barber of Seville, singing Fiorello, Adam and Henry Wincone's Beatitude, Mass for the Homeless, right? Beatitude?
Beatitudes.
Beatitude. Ciao. Beatitude. Okay. And among many other things, including St. Matthew's Passion, Beethoven's Choral Fantasy, and as Coalhouse Walker in Ragtime. So thank you for joining us today, Jermaine.
It is
We
my
appreciate
honor.
you being here. We love you being here. Now we're going to go to our next guest, Mr. Frederick Ballentine, or Mr. Freddie Ballentine. Yes, welcome in, sweetheart. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I am feeling so beautiful. This sun is like blessing me. I'm good.
Amazing. You look radiant.
Yeah, you do.
Radiant.
Radiant. Thanks, boy.
So I'm going to read a little bit of your bio. So Frederick Ballentine, he, him, his, hails from Norfolk, Virginia, which is right down the street from me.
VA.
VA, hey. Jermaine
all
also.
All of us.
Yes.
Originally from Virginia. Okay, VA,
is
hey,
Frank
hey.
as well, though? Is Frank too?
Frank isn't from VA, but he's from Florida, so he's close enough.
Florida,
he's
right?
giving a little, he's giving a little southern. He's giving a little southern tea. So Freddie has already begun to stake his claim as a leading voice of opera, and this is true tea. His pre-pandemic 2021 season included debuts with Chicago Lyric Opera, haha, Houston Grand Opera, haha, Florentine Opera, haha, and Memphis Opera. Okay.
On pause. And we're all waiting.
Okay. Most recently, he was praised for his performance of Sport and Life in the Metropolitan Opera's new production of Porgy and Bess, which he was phenomenal in. And then, let me tell y'all, right after, honey, he flipped the switch, as they say, and then went to perform the title role in Charlie Parker's Yardbird at Seattle Opera, which is, from what I've heard, one of the hardest roles in the canon at the moment.
Girl,
he's also made his right. Okay, he's also made his leading debuts with companies internationally, including Dutch National Opera and English National Opera. So he's also international, honey. Okay, taking the world by storm. Now I'm gonna read a little bit about our next guest, Frank. He unfortunately is having some technical difficulties, so he's gonna try to join into the conversation shortly. But to give you a little bit about Frank, their pronouns are they, them, their, and they were most recently seen performing the role of Dr. Frankenfurter in the Rocky Horror Show at the Warehouse Theater in Greenville, South Carolina, where they garnered a Broadway World nomination for Best Lead Actor in a Musical, Professional. And Ken Davenport's, look, right on time. Hey! What it on?
Oh my God.
Amen.
Oh my God.
Right
oh my
on
God.
time.
I'm so sorry.
Hello, Frank. It's okay. You made it right on time, baby. Baby, you made it right on time. So welcome in. I'm just in the middle of reading your beautiful bio.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. So, where they garnered a Broadway World nomination for Best Lead Actor in a Musical, and Ken Davenport's Broadway spotted Next Big Star on Off-Broadway Top 10. Other recent stage acting credits are Eddie in Sister Act with Iron Bridge Theater, and Jefferson in A Lesson Before Dying in Theater Jacksonville. As a vocalist, Mr. Humphrey co-headlined at the First Ladies Luncheon in Washington, D.C. at the invitation, okay, let me tell you, at the invitation of Miss First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama. Hey, hey. Mr. Humphrey has won several first place awards, including the Grand Ram competition, Grady Ram competition, and the Gershwin International Music Competition. They've also received the Bachelor of Music from Manhattan School of Music. That's where we met originally. And they were the Scott Edward Oakley Scholarship recipient. In the fall, Mr. Humphrey will be performing the role of Papa Gay in Once on This Island. Hey, come on, Papa Gay. So, welcome to my beautiful friends. I'm so happy that you could join me today. And I am so looking forward to it. Frank, I don't know if we can hear your audio. Try saying a little something, Frank.
Hey.
Okay, there you go. We hear you, baby. Okay, so I've already defined what identity is, and I've defined what intersectionality is, and what it means to be queer. So some things that are coming up recently, I just want to kind of discuss. We're gonna do this as a open dialogue. We're gonna talk about a few topics, and the first one I want to talk about is recent events and our Blackness, our queerness, and taking space. So as we know, while we are in a pandemic, we also are in a space of enlightening others about the struggles that we face daily as Black and individuals that are part of the LGBTQ spectrum. How are you all doing right now? How has that been for you? How has the experience been for you?
You're talking about just within the past month, of course.
Just within the past, well, pre everything happening with the Black Lives Matter movement coming to the forefront, and also during pandemic. I think we might have lost Jermaine for a second, but he'll be back. Okay. Go ahead, Freddie. You go ahead and go first.
Oh, of course. I think lately I've been fighting an overwhelming sense of hopelessness, and I think a lot of us have. And it's not just the toxic rhetoric that we've seen from the opposition to the movement that we have right now, but it's also just like the knowledge of how little people recognize what had been going on. I think so few of us, like few Black people, were surprised to see what we saw. Yet, like so many people were surprised to see it, and just like that realization that people were so out of tune with the disparity in this country, that's been very, very, very frustrating for me. So my goal has just been trying to find my own hope and trying to be as socially productive as I can during this time. But I mean, I think it's been very, very hard. I think it's been hard for all of us. I've been lucky enough to have a very blessed career. So the moment that I jumped out of the Young Artist program, I was working nonstop, and I haven't had this much free time ever. So I just trying to figure out what the hell to do with myself that could just that can actually contribute to the world, but also contribute to my well-being has been very difficult. But you know what? I think we're figuring it out. We're all figuring it out bit by bit. You know, that's where I am.
Exactly. What about you, Frank? How's everything been with you?
At first it was really difficult, and it was really difficult in a sense because like literally I think March 12th or 13th I left out of the city, and leaving out of the city I left a very interracial neighborhood. I left a very culturally diverse neighborhood, and I went upstate, and so what I saw was people who didn't look like me, and when they were doing like different I wouldn't say parades, but when they were riding in Saratoga, they were, you know, I had white people around me saying, "This is what democracy looks like." Right, that part.
Interesting.
And so
Interesting.
I was like, that's not what democracy looks like. So like finding that self, like going into myself and saying, okay, God, like what do I need to do? Like how do I need to show up? And so like Freddie said, just keeping myself really busy. Like I feel like a lot of projects have been really coming through this week for myself, which really has taken my mind off of what I've been seeing. No, I am still fighting. I am still out there. I am still having conversations. I have called out people. I've called them up and called them out.
Okay.
I feel like I've been taking more of an activist standpoint than I have a singer, dancer, acting approach with it. And I've been enjoying it because these are the things that I've really, really wanted to say now that this is the opportunity has come. I'm doing it, and I'm doing it unapologetically, and I don't care.
Right. Don't care. Period. What about you, Jermaine?
It's what we gotta do.
It's literally same as the other two. I know when this first started, I actually had a different approach. I enjoyed the break. I enjoyed the time off, and it was kind of refreshing and rejuvenating at the same time. And when May, what date was this? May 25th, when I saw the George Floyd video, it's like my world literally shifted upside down. And I felt that was the time to really start speaking out, really start calling a spade, being my very forthright self instead of trying to coddle people's feelings and emotions. It was time to actually speak up on the platform that I was given. And unfortunately, I guess it's not unfortunate, but I don't have any other social media except Facebook. And I knew that was where I could reach a large amount of people. I mean, in the past, at least the past couple of years, I've been pretty clear about being pansexual and honest and open with that. I've been clear about where I stood on Black Lives Matter and how I feel about Black people. And now that we're in a society where industries and systems are being called out worldwide, openly and very ardently as they have been,
broke open.
Sure. I'm here for it. Because it's time. So I feel like I've taken my rightful place and I've just been honest, doing it with love and as much compassion as I can. But I won't sugarcoat anymore like I used to. And I think a lot of people have been I think a lot of people have been responding well to that. So we're gonna see.
Hey, it's a journey, right?
I think we all said pretty much the same thing. I think we all, like, whether or not we knew that was something that we were going to have to do with our lives, have been called to activism at this point in time and called to be a voice of our people at some point throughout all of this. But we got to do what we got to do.
Exactly. Right. I wouldn't have known that. I mean, I just saw Elliott in December and I just saw Freddie in February. Who knew in March we were going to be faced with a global pandemic, and then in May, the world was going to be enraged about what happened in Minneapolis, America. Like, that to me is extraordinary, and that's stuff that you don't plan, nor do you see coming, unless you're Sylvia Browne and you predicted in a book in 2008.
Not Sylvia Browne. Okay.
I'm not gonna say that I was the only one who was fascinated by that.
Now, do you feel like your gender identity or your sexual identity has come to play in this dynamic shift that's happening? Do you think that your identity as being Black, queer, or whether it be pansexual, gay, because remember at the beginning we said queer is, we want to coin that as an umbrella term, right? An umbrella term that encompasses the LGBTQ spectrum. So do you feel like being Black and queer has affected you as a performer? Though we're not performing as much right now, do you feel like it has affected you previously? And do you feel like it informs your performance or what you decide to perform. Whoever like to go for, I mean, it definitely has affected mine, for sure.
Oh yeah, I would agree. I think it definitely affected mine. I think I mean I didn't realize it was affecting me when I was growing up. I emulated a teacher that I loved back in high school who had like the most gorgeous model walk. He could like take on Naomi without a question, girl. And like that's where I got my sense of movement from, and my grace, as people would say. And unfortunately, that is something that has been stifled when I'm on stage, and that started in high school. And that was the first time that I realized that who I am, how I present myself, wouldn't be welcomed on the stage as readily as other people. Unfortunately, that's a reality. If you have to play a straight character, if you have to play a very butch character, you have to figure that out. But I also have found that, like, still, like, just not even, I mean, the Blackness, that's a whole other realm. But being queer and in the classical world, having to deal with conservative voices among the donors, and having to deal with administrations that are very conscious of what their patrons and donors may think of us as individuals, has meant that like we are constantly, I feel like people are constantly saying, could you tone it down? Could you be a little less over the top? Could you be less flamboyant? When people are saying, could you be less you? That is the reality of what we face. And as Jermaine said, like I think for a lot of time, just as with when they say the same thing about our Blackness, we dealt with it and we internalized it, and now's the time where we don't have to do that anymore, and we should not do that anymore. We have to vocalize the need for us to be who the fuck we are. But yes, most definitely, I feel like it definitely has affected my career. Its effects did how I have to move through the career, but in a way, it's also given me like that descent that I have to deal with. It's also giving me the strength of character that I have now.
Yes. I love that.
Well, for
Jermaine?
me, I've actually had a casting director say to me, I understand that you're gay, but can you walk on stage and can you be a man? So,
which is not, they don't correlate. Okay. Let's be clear.
It was not okay, and I had some words with her because in that space it was harassment to me. It was clear harassment to me, and if that was the only factor if that was the only thing that stopped you from hiring me, wow, it was a wow moment. So yes, it has affected me. It has affected me because I mean I was going to be traveling from different states, state to state, to doing this show, and I really wanted to do it. But that was a moment. But I say, you know what? I'm still going to show up unapologetically me, and it's just going to be a thing, because I'm the moment, and I'm going to be the moment. Because if I'm not the moment, if I'm not going to stand on these front lines and be exactly what our ancestors worked so very hard for, there's no purpose of me being a performer. There's no purpose of me sharing my spirit. There's no purpose of me sharing my gift with the world, because all of us on this, we have a purpose. And I just knew that woman. I said to I was actually asked the other day, was I going to put her information on my resume, and I said no, I'm choosing not to, because you saw me to make money off of me when I did the first production for you. You saw me to make money off of me. You hired a bunch of black people, and you made some money off of them. Now when I come back into your space and share my gift, you're asking me, you know me, you're asking me, can I walk across the stage and be a man? Of course, I did it before. I played a father to a daughter and a son. Like, what are you talking about? And I grew a beard for you. And
that's so...
It was just...
and it's not even a criticism. At your point, it's no longer a criticism of your skills of performing. Like, we're performers. We can be what we need to be on the stage. We've been trained to do that. But at that point, she's straight up criticizing you. She's criticizing you for...
Right.
So and it didn't break me. It didn't break me. It didn't break me at all. Yep.
Right. and it shouldn't break you. And it should be said that gender and sexuality are two different things.
Say that.
They intersect with each other, but they are not the same thing. So just as a clarity point, they are not the same. They do intersect, but they are two different spectrums within the same realm. What about you, Jermaine? Has the things you identify as affected you as a performer, and does it inform your performance or what you decide to perform?
I think the projects that I've been doing, with one particular in mind at this moment, there's an oratorio called Considering Matthew Shepard that I did 2 years ago. And it's, I mean, if you're an American who, was alive and well during the 90s, at some point you knew about this story. But for someone like me who didn't know anything about this Wyoming incident, this Wyoming murder that took place, I know I've been giving myself, particularly from that moment up until now, I've been giving myself agency to live in my truth, in my art, and in my personal life. And it's like I was alluding to earlier, it's projects that have been giving me the courage to be unapologetically me, and whatever that is, be okay with that. Because unlike some of the disrespectful, disgusting things that we often have to bear as queer people, not even just queer artists, but as queer people, it's always humbling knowing that we have a group of people, or we come back to a specific idea or thing, for lack of better words, that offer us comfort and peace and community. And being surrounded by a group of people that aren't Black. I mean, no one in the group at this time when I did Matthew Shepard was Black, but I felt so loved. I felt so honored that I was able to sing these words, be this comfortable in this moment at this time with these people, informing them of this story that is, quite frankly, very personal to me. I wasn't there, I wasn't involved, but he was part of my community, Matthew Shepard. And it was then on, particularly since 2018, I'm sorry, where things kind of took a shift. And, I started walking in my truth again, whatever that is, because it's really no one's business. I have the privilege of sharing it with you. Right. And it's like, where have we missed that part of individuality? But
right.
I know for me, it's informed me, but it's more so encouraged me, because as all of us know, where we come from, how we've grown up, it was not always easy to be us.
Right.
And I can speak about that. I can attest to that personally. I can speak about it now as a survivor or someone who's overcome. But art has always been kind of like my saving grace. And when there are people out there who create art to not only affect change and help educate, but that's where I'm finding I kind of enjoy being there more. I don't know. It just renders something truer about performing and something more raw and authentic.
Right. And when you mention where we come from, I want to speak to that a little bit, because there are some viewers who may not understand that sentiment, right? So I'm thinking what Jermaine is saying, that you already, being a person who is of intersectionality, right? You are a person who you have faced discrimination due to your race. And then within your own race, there's also sometimes an air of discrimination due to your sexuality. And then there's also a space of discrimination due to your profession, because people think, oh, you're an artist. You're just like a laissez-faire, laissez-faire, like you don't really work. And we work. Let's just make that clear. We work. And sometimes it's for little to no reward. So we the journey I think that Jermaine was referring to is the fact that we get these little spouts of non-supportive judgment
Yes.
from different aspects, not just from one space of what we identify as. And speaking about that, something that I've experienced is something that a lot of people I think in our industry have experienced, which is images with self and public image. So body image, your body weight, your skin color, your hair type, your hair length, all of these things that kind of are a part of you, and some people reject these things and some people embrace them. I've chosen to embrace my image and my body and think of it as a positive thing for me. As long as I can run, I was gonna say a curse word, but as long as I can run my tail from one side of the stage to the other and sing an aria for you, I think we're good. We get a lot in this industry. You need to look like this. You need to sound like this. You need to make sure that your hair is professional. You need to make sure that you're presenting professionally. I'm all about professionalism, but there comes a time where you have to say, well, what is the professional ideal? Where is the professional ideal based in? Specifically for me in hair politics, the professional ideal is based in a space of, I want to say, whiteness.
Yeah.
The
That's
ideals,
That's the
right?
default.
That's the default. And not to, I'm not trying to say anything against my white colleagues, white friends, but that is part of systemic racism, excuse me. And so
They both work.
for
You
me,
nailed
right. For me, professionalism is every single look that we have here, whether it's bald, low cut, a little curl, a dreadlock, they're all professional looks. And so I want to talk about a little bit of your own experiences with public image and things that you might have experienced, or things that might have influenced you as a performer when it comes to those things. If anybody would like to share. Go ahead. I heard you breathe.
If you're talking about, well, go ahead, Jermaine.
we like, well,
Mine is like the simplest. I think
ahead.
Freddie and Frank might be able to go deeper on this, but for me, I've had quite a luxury maybe because my career has only been taking off in New England, and Northerners are receptive to my look. I've not, at least not outrightly, have I felt disrespected or discriminated against. But when these curls were struggling, no one said anything. And now that it's kind of like intact and cleaner and more presentable, I guess, I feel fine. But again, I feel like the body of water that I'm in is called New England. Freddie's international now. Frank is all up and across the coast. So I would love to hear everybody else's. But for me, as someone a part of this discussion at this moment, I've been okay. But I know people. And it's never okay in my book. Ever.
And that's a part of it, is that everybody, that's part of what we want to show here, is that everyone's experiences are different. We have things that are so in common, but your experience will be different. Go ahead, Freddie.
I mean, it's excuse me. It's a little difficult for me to speak of it because I've had very short cropped hair my entire life. I've never really grown out a fro. I may have had it for a hot second in undergrad when I wanted to have some red hair, but she didn't last long.
Okay.
That wasn't necessarily because, I mean, definitely there were educators who came at me like, maybe you can't have red hair. And I was like, why can't he? If he can have red hair, why can't I have red hair? That was my problem then. And it remains to be my problem when we lose our bit of individuality because there's only one look that they're ready to digest for us, I can, of course, like, I've been hearing so many stories from Black women, though, and of course they have to deal with it so much more because there's way more variation in their hair. And like that one of them, I don't know if y'all saw the talk, Amanda Bottoms talk. That she had with, I think it was 10 women who
10,
were either
yeah.
in Young Artists or recently out of Young Artists. And one of the girls said that when somebody asked her what she planned on doing with her hair for the recital, she referred to this woman's natural hair as her goofy hair, and wondered if she would be using a wig or something to hide it instead. So that's something that I have observed, and I've lived on a smaller scale from when I was younger. But since I've been bald, I personally haven't had to deal with it. But of course, I think we all have to deal with the lack of people who know what to do with us makeup and hair wise when we have to get on stage. That continues to be a problem. I like these girls over here at the Kennedy Center, though, they got it down. I mean,
yes, they do.
Those girls know what they're doing.
Yes, they do.
Thank you, Ali Bohaka. But I feel like that's not the norm. It's just definitely not the norm everywhere, you know? And when you go to a production and they hand you like some really, really gorgeous white man's hair to put in your head as a wig, that shit's infuriating, you know? Nobody on that stage in that audience thinks that I'm a white man. All right, so why can't I be treated as such? Why can't my natural hair work for the stage? I feel like that's something that I have experienced personally. But in terms, for me, I've had it easier than most.
For me, it's been height.
It's been
my height.
Height. Ah, interesting.
It's been my height. I've always had to trick people or trick casting by wearing an inch or two.
So it's height because they see you as a shorter individual.
Yeah, they see me as a shorter individual. I remember I was up for Lola and Kinky Boots, somewhere like a regional production or whatever like that, and they were like, "You're the shortest Lola we've seen." I was like, "Oh, okay." And I ended up getting a call back, and he was like, "You're really short. Are you comfortable?" Like I was like, "Can I just be short and just do it?" Like I don't see I don't see the problem here. And then one time it was my hair, because Elliott, I was like, one time I'll go short, I'll be with curls. 1 minute I'll go short, and I texted him,
honey, short, long.
I was like, I'm growing it, and I'm gonna keep growing it, because it just makes me happy, and I feel like it shows where I come from. It shows that Wakanda side in me, and right, and I love that. Like I said, you know, you can put it up, you can do it under the wig, you can do whatever you want to it, but I love my hair, and it represents me. It's me, inimitably me.
Right. And something that was touched on was makeup, right? And how I know within the theatrical space, a lot of companies will I have been asked, and I'm on more of the fair skin spectrum.
Yeah.
So, did you bring your own makeup? Or do you have like a suggestion for what we could use products wise for your skin tone, or do you have a preference? And it's a microaggression, right? So it's a space of saying like, oh well, we just want you to be really comfortable, or we just want to see what do you prefer? That's not it though. The actual root of what's being asked is, we don't know what to do because either they weren't trained to do it or no one has trained them to do it. And so we are relying on you now, even though it's not your job, to now help us do our job, right? And it happens more often than not. So I know totally what you mean about hair, makeup, all of these things. And one of the other things that I mentioned was weight, right? So for me, I'm a big guy. Okay. Period. He's chunky, he's fierce. But I know that. But to some directors, I had, for instance, in my graduate school, After the first day of rehearsal of the first production that I was in, the director called me up and everyone is leaving. And she goes, "So, what are we doing about the wait?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, "Is it cookies or candies or chocolates? I mean, what's going on? What are we doing about the wait?" And I said, "Well," I mean, I was taken aback, so it took me a second to get my bearings. And I said, "Well, it's something that I'm working on for myself and for me. And that's my own business." And she went on to say, "Well, I really think it's something that you just need to work on. It's just something that you need to work on." Now, the issue with this is not that she was asking me for any health reasons. It was purely for aesthetics. And that is the core of the issue when it comes to body image and relations related to that, is that ask me for health reasons. If I'm struggling doing something, if you see that I'm physically exhausted after doing whatever needs to be done, then maybe like with a teeny grain of salt, it may be appropriate to ask someone something like that. But other than that, there's no reason why you should ask someone such an intrusive question like that. Have any of you experienced anything similar or?
Yeah, definitely. I experienced it. I used to be heavier. I lost about a little over 100 pounds, and I began that process back early in grad school. And it's something that I struggled with growing up, but struggled with not because I wasn't satisfied, more so because the people around me weren't satisfied. And that's one of the biggest problems. And finally, I got to grad school, and somebody said, "You need to lose weight. I want you to message me every day what you're eating, so that I can make sure that you're losing weight." And honestly, I do attribute my weight loss to that, but that also was a huge point of stress to me. And I never messaged that woman everything that I ate every day, because it wasn't her business. And it was my body and it was my business. And I wanted to do for my body what I needed to do to be happy with myself. All right. And I feel like that's the problem with administrators and directors and opera, especially because they push us to do this, but they don't, as you say, they don't do it for our health. They do it for the aesthetic. They do it for themselves, not for us. If somebody wants to lose weight for their health, that is their journey, and that's up to them. It's not up to anybody else, and nor does anybody have the right to try to enforce themselves upon it. And in doing so, you only cause stress for that person. I still deal with so much mental stress from all those voices in the back of my head calling me fat from growing up, and from hearing it on the stage and being worried about it on the stage. I still feel like I'm uncomfortable on stage sometimes because I feel like I'm overweight, because I can't get rid of those voices telling me the same thing years ago.
Right. Exactly. So it can play a part of your mental health as well, which is something that we're going to touch on later, and how that affects you as a performer. Another aspect that I think we've all four of us have had our own journey coming to is playing the part. Okay, or code switching. So for people who don't know, code switching is when you speak and behave in a way with one group of people, and then you may behave in a different way or speak in a different way with another group of people. In layman's terms, it's your quote unquote professional voice. So with my friends, I might be like, "Hey girl, what's up, child, honey child, what's going on, what's the tea?" But in a professional space, I might say, "Hey, how are you? So nice to meet you. Are you doing well today?" Right? So you're ebbing and flowing, and it's a very natural thing for people to do. But an aspect of that we deal with is also playing a part, playing this role, right, of the approachable Black person, or the happy Black person, or a caricature, so that we aren't criticized or said to say, "Oh, well, he's always angry," or "Oh, he always has an attitude," or we just don't want to work with him because he just never smiles," which is
Or he's a
not,
Devo.
or he's a Devo, right? Or they're a Devo. So something that comes up a lot, you see this in television, is this logic of the magical Negro. Okay, so that is a person who always helps out the main character, who gives good advice, who is the person that they always turn to, and typically this ends up being a black person. The person who is the angry black man, or the person who is the happy black caricature. So I'm wondering, in your experience coming into your identity as a black person, has the media influenced you? Have your own experiences? How have they affected you as you come to learn more about your identity?
I know. So I'll kind of piggyback. Um, my story is very similar to Freddie's, but unlike this gorgeous man that we see in front of us, I'm still struggling immensely, and it's a daily struggle, and it's something I've heard all my life. And actually, the year I met Frank doing a competition, AXO, NAACP AXO competition, one of the judges, she was, I'm not gonna coddle her. She was very apparent about how I should probably look into really dropping some pounds, which at that time I already knew this. So to hear it from someone that I had gained respect for in such little time, it was partially endearing, but I didn't know how psychologically damning it could be if I didn't have the confidence in myself to embrace what she was saying, apply it where it may be applicable, and then extract whatever else I don't need. But at that time, even right now saying it at 26 years old, it's still stuck with me and it's always still there. And so are other people's comments. And with that struggle of weight loss and trying to be healthy and, dealing with loss in such a magnified way, where sometimes you could only eat what the food was in the house. What was organic in 2008 to me? What was farm raised? What was pasture raised? Like, none of these terms even made sense to me until I graduated college, which was just 4 years ago. So knowing that I had the weight on, knowing I had the voice, I mean, so yes. It will be whatever. I felt, to the point of code switching, I felt like I had to start playing a role. I had to be the funny guy. I had to be rambunctious. I was obnoxious in high school. I toned it down a little bit, but then it got celebrated in college. And I was the loving teddy bear that everybody looked to for glee and joy and positivity, which is okay. But again, it's psychologically perplexing, because sometimes you don't know if it's a real facade, if you don't know if it's an extension of you that is useful, and sometimes you're not sure of who you really even are. So when you grow up and things start shifting and you start finding yourself in these spaces where you're a little bit more comfortable to be your authentic self, I think your language shifts, the vernacular you use becomes more accessible to how you actually speak. And I've found not going directly into the theater space or the Hollywood space where everyone, as we all probably have heard, you should do American Idol, you should do America's Got Talent, you should do The Voice, you should do this show. Protecting myself and not going that route, which I know probably would have damaged me in ways that were probably irreparable. And I feel safe where I am now, because when you're in the liturgical space, the choral space, the opera space, even where I'm at, people aren't as, I don't think people are as brutal with their commentary, because I mean, I haven't personally been attacked for being bigger and Black and with curly hair. It's more of an endearing or a fascination or a compliment, or
can I
so
touch
it
your
will be.
hair? It looks so soft.
Don't
Can I
touch
touch your
my
hair?
hair.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
And I just embrace it, because as long as you don't go pulling out my curls being ridiculous, then it's fine. But I know some people don't like that, and that is okay. That's always been exactly. That's always been okay, and we shouldn't be ostracized for that. So I'm kind of tying in everything, because I do feel I've had to code switch because of what I look like, because of where I am in the field that I am a part of. And now I think my authentic self is flourishing and sprouting in ways that I didn't see coming. I was just doing the work to make sure I maintained sanity. Because had I went into Hollywood, or had I went into those shows where, some people really get damaged along the way, I don't know how I would have come out, but I do know I can say now that comfortably I'm at peace with the challenge that I have in front of me. And I'm comfortable with what I've had to go through in order to get to where I am now. Just kind of tying it all together.
Awesome. What about anyone else with that? I know Freddie, I think you had something you were going to say.
Oh, I was going off of what he said, and like it's something that I quite never put together. I've dealt with a lot of my own. I know we may talk about it later, but I've dealt with my own issues with my Blackness when I was younger, which meant that I started code switching very early. I started hanging out with only white kids growing up, and I started code switching very early. And as I got older and I started becoming more comfortable with my Blackness and with Black people, and I realized the naturalness that comes with me being around them, I realized that I was changing that. And actually, my friends started calling me out for it. But I still have done it for the whole of my life, and I continue to do it because it's what's required of us here in opera, especially with the people that we're around constantly. We're not around people we're not around with other Black people most of the time. Let's be honest. Most of the time I walk into a person room, I'm the only Black person there, and I've accepted that. But it does mean that our Blackness it's stifled at times. Oh my God, there's always that one white guy who will the moment that you slip into your Blackness just a little too much in your speech pattern, who's like, oh yeah, son, fool, who are you talking to? What makes you think that we're related?
What's up? What's good?
Where did we get to this point? It's that kind of thing. It's almost a reason for us to put up our guard even more and to continue to code switch, just so we don't have to deal with the fucking foolishness. Sorry if I curse.
Right.
I cannot.
You're okay, baby. You're okay.
It's frustrating, but just so we don't have to deal with the foolishness, And also, as you said earlier, there will be those people who will call us out for not code switching and say that the way that we're speaking or behaving is unprofessional, which is disgusting. It's a stifling of someone's who they are, their being.
Right, definitely. Frank, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, sure, yeah. Well, for me, when I was at MSM, I was knee deep in it. I was code switching a lot until one professor told me to just stop. That's what she said. Just stop.
Have an idea on who that is, who that may be.
Nice.
Yeah, you know who it is, and I value her a lot, because she was like, you have all you need. So whatever it is you're trying to prove, whatever it is you're trying to do, you need to give it up. So she called me up and she called me out. So by my senior year, I was like, you know what? Even from what I was wearing, even from how I was speaking, even from how I carried myself, it was just it was such a facade. It was such a character. It was such a character, to the point where I just felt like everywhere I went, because mind you, remember now, when we all came in, there was 4 Blacks accepted into MSM. 4 or 5 Blacks wholly, from doctoral, master's, and undergrad. So you really had to I felt like I really had to make a mark. But it was my senior year that I started, when I was welcome to the table and start being asked these questions. That was when I started freeing myself. And it's been a ministry for me. It's been therapeutic for me. And so when I see it, I just politely say, hey, come on, bro, come on, sis, let's talk about something real quick, because I want to stop you. I want to help you before you get too far into your career or get too far in doing your work that you forget to go back to your community from which you came from. See, that's the thing for me. I was forgetting about my community. I was forgetting about the process and those
Say that, Frank.
invested in me.
Yes.
And so what I had to do, I had to stop that shit. Because I remember a woman, and I always get emotional saying this, but I remember a black woman said, I did a concert before coming to NMSM. She said, "Here's $200. I wanna let you know that there is a bill that's going unpaid this month." And look at what I was doing. I literally, when that professor said that thing to me, it was like, oh, I've been doing it too long. And it took, I went to therapy. I spoke with a couple of people and I worked through it. It was something I had to really work through. And there's still instances, but I always say, let's go back. Let's get back into the center of it. And so that grounds me.
Well, I think oh, go ahead, Freddie.
Oh no, I was agreeing with Frank. Like, you're right, and like as you were saying too, you lose your community, you lose yourself as you code switch. You just lose who you are in your effort to assimilate into white culture.
Right, and I think that for me has become even more apparent too with the BLM resurgence that's happening right now, and that all of these friends coming out of the woodwork that you haven't talked to in years, and they always start with, "Hey friend, hi friend, how are you doing?" And for me, I think it's because I am to those people the approachable Black person, right? Or I'm one of the few Black people that they know that they feel comfortable enough coming to me and asking questions, which I have no problem answering questions about Blackness or about what matters to Black people. But also, I'm not an expert. I'm only an expert on my experience, right? So these are the things that we as Black individuals need to stop and say, okay, I can't be that dictionary for you. You're going to have to do your own research. And to tie that with code switching, it's this space of like, well, are these people only coming to me because they think of me as this part that I've played around them? And for me, I didn't realize that I was like playing a part, because I went to a predominantly Black high school, inner city school, and then I went to James Madison University, which is in the mountains of Virginia, which is a PWI meaning predominantly white institution, where out of 16,000 students, only 2% were Black. So it was the first time in my life that I was the only Black person in a room, including the professor. In a classroom of 30 people, 31 including the professor, I was the only one who was Black. And for that matter, of color. Well, presentable of color. And it made me start to realize like, oh, I need to, it made me think that I needed to change. And through the course of those 4 years, the way that I spoke changed, the way that I dressed changed, the way that I presented myself to people changed. And I think it changed for kind of the better, to be a more professional person in general. But also I lost some of my identity of where I came from, like Frank was saying. You start to lose that. And then when you go home and you see your family or you see your friends, because you've been in that bubble, you've been in that white bubble, the white space bubble, you start to realize like, we don't talk the same. We don't speak the same way to each other. And how do you find yourself? How do you find yourself in that? It's so hard to do. It's incredibly hard to do. And it's something I think
I remember
struggle
when
with.
Go ahead, Freddie.
I remember when I came home from college, my first winter home from college. I had Bell's palsy at the same time too, so my face was fucked. Like,
Oh my
this half of my face
goodness.
was totally paralyzed.
Stress,
she
honey.
recovered, but like that half of the face was totally paralyzed. I remember my friends and my nephew said something to me, and when my nephew said it, it made me want to cry. They're like, "Freddie, you talk white now," and I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You don't talk like us. You talk white," and like. It's almost felt like I was suddenly ostracized from my community, just in that one moment, you know, just like distance because I had been working so hard to assimilate into my primarily white college that I forgot how to be with my family and to be as we are, you know?
That was my next observation. I was literally itching to say that. Like it was like festering in my spirit. And I was like, I need to tell Black families out there, stop traumatizing your Black boys. And if they start to produce language that may be a little bit more eloquent and grammatically correct, it is okay. We're not talking white. That does
it's
not.
both
That's
ways.
not a thing.
It really is both ways.
That's
it goes
not a
both.
thing.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
It's
not a thing.
For me, I'm sorry to interject, but it's not a thing because I remember going home, same like winter. I think it was my first year there, winter, and I came home, and I think my mom said something along the lines of, "Well, you don't need to talk down to me like that." And I was like, "Well," I'm saying to myself, "Well, what did I say?" And I'm playing it back. I said, "Oh, it was the fact that it was verb noun agreement going on." And that's what it was.
Yes. I got you.
That's what it was. And I and I just have to say, I had to get that off my chest because it was something I just kept playing that back, and I just kept, and I mean literally I was watching something and I got up and it was like Eureka, and I just was like, I know what I say. It's just verb noun agreement, and you're feeling though I'm talking down to you. You feel as though I'm using these big massive words and talking wide and all that stuff. It doesn't exist. Who came up with that? Go back to where you ever came from. I don't really care. Listen, we owe it to ourselves as African Americans to speak highly of ourselves and to speak the part, but never forget where we come from. That's all I want to say.
Yes.
Amen.
I'm here for it all. So with that, we talk about self-love and self-hate. How do you get out of that space of, because you want for instance, for me, when I was in high school with the classmates that I went to school with, and it was predominantly Black, I never felt 100% connected because I liked things that were traditionally not a part of the way that my colleagues and friends were speaking or being a part of. Like, I would listen to like Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco, but I would also listen to, Beyonce and Usher. Okay. And so then you go to college, and then you also feel like, well, I'm not listening to, Nickelback and Daughtry, okay? But I want to identify with these people. So how can we do that? And so I'm wondering if any of you have any advice to people who are struggling with the same thing. Because I mean, I'm still going through it myself every now and then, trying to still find my identity, right? Do you have any advice on people who may be trying to figure out where to take that energy, how to figure out how to not just assimilate, but thrive in a space where they feel uncomfortable? Because it's all about feeling uncomfortable. That's the main thing, is breaking the feeling of being uncomfortable. So do you all have maybe just a little I don't know, advice or a nugget of wisdom from your own past that may be helpful? I know you got to think about it, child, because it's a deep question.
It is.
She's a deep question.
Are you talking? Are you asking? I'm just to clarify the question. Are you asking about our identity or issues of hate within ourselves?
I think where I was coming from was because we question our identity in all spectrums. How do you combat your own self-hate? What are some tips or some things to think about in combating your own feelings of self-hate, because you may not feel like you fit in any of the spaces that are presented in front of you?
That rewording was powerful.
Yes, it was.
You penetrated to my soul when you said that. I was like, oh shoot, how do I answer this?
I mentioned it earlier how growing up, when I was growing up, I had a lot of self-hate associated with my blackness, and I could not shake it, and my parents couldn't shake it. And straight up in middle school, I asked my parents to change my name to Zachary. I only hung out with white kids, and you had to search for the white kids. I only hung out with the white kids. Wow. I really thought that there was something wrong with me being black, and it was because, like, in terms of the media, all the cool people were the white people, the people who had the money, and in the better neighborhoods in my area were all the white people. The kids who got to have the best stuff in school, they were all the white kids. And I took that out on our race. And I could not shake it. And honestly, I didn't care to shake it growing up. I was a kid. It was something that I just knew. It was something that was. And there was and my mom cried her tears over it, but she couldn't figure out what to do to help me to get over it. And I didn't get over it didn't begin getting over it, because I definitely still fight it, but I didn't begin getting over hating my blackness until I got into high school. Midway through high school, when I finally made black friends in my regular high school, not my performing arts high school. And it just took me being around the most beautiful aspects of black people, being around like the energy and actually being integrated into it, not seeing it from the outside as a kid and thinking that it was abrasive and not as cool or calm and collected as the white people are. And that's not how people would describe me at all now. Nobody would call me I don't think anybody describes me as chill. Nobody thinks I'm reserved or quiet. But that's what I thought that I should be in order to be white growing up. So I was a very quiet and reserved kid. And so I was too. The black community.
Yep.
But the moment that I embraced like my black friends, the black people at my school, the black people at my church, I had to go into church because there were black people there. It just took so much diving in and really looking hard at our people and seeing how fucking beautiful it is. And I think, but you know what? Once you get past that point, the only tip that I think I can give somebody other than just like really diving in is getting a therapist. Because for myself, like that's years, those are decades of attacks upon myself that I put there, And there comes a point where we have to just accept that maybe somebody else should help us with that.
I totally agree. Within that space, do you feel like your mental health has affected you as a performer, or do you think performing has helped your mental health?
I think it has, because it's helped me to be strong no matter what. It's given me just some fortitude. What we do is so high pressure, and being on that stage is high pressure, and there are so many voices, a lot of them unfortunately trying to bring you down. I've had to ignore those voices and still get out there and make it happen. So I would say for me personally, performing has helped me, and it's helped me just to think about things in a more calm and rational manner, if that makes sense. And it's a weird way of going about it to get there, but honestly, that's where it has gotten me. Because when we're on that stage and you have all those things in your head and you're like, oh my God, I'm failing, I am worse, I don't belong here. What's that thing called when you feel like you don't belong in a space?
Imposter syndrome.
All that in your head. You have to be able to just say, okay, look, girl, this is where you are. This is your life. Do your job, make it happen. You can't worry about all those little voices.
Right. I love that.
I think to what Freddie was saying, which really just touched me in that moment, is, you know, when I reflect on the adolescent stage of growing up, you know, I've always been relatively obnoxious and rambunctious and like full of energy and light and all the beautiful flowery things that make a person happy and gleeful. But like I was saying earlier, I think what shifted recently was when I started trying to understand what my truth was. And then that's when the facade started to die, because I recognize that I don't know everything. And there's a lot of I consider myself a student of life. So there's a lot of education that I am going to always, literally until I'm in the ground, be learning and embracing and educating self about. And though I still deal with the internal struggles that sometimes are really hard to overcome, recognizing that I don't know everything, but I do know enough to navigate life right now, knowing that I don't have to put on, be a caricature of myself. I don't have to please everyone, even though I would like to. It's quite humbling when you kind of, and I'm currently going through this literally right now, when you kind of release control, but you put in a little bit more effort and you show up for yourself. And now I'm starting to understand the dichotomy of, you don't know enough, but you know enough to endure what you're going through. So just put a little bit more effort into it. Take care of yourself the best way you know how. And for some people, like Lizzo just said, that's not about me reshaping my body to please y'all. This is for me to upkeep self and to be my best on the stage as a thick Black woman. And I know that's empowering, because for me, for a long time, I mean, and I'm still struggling with body image and body positivity. And Elliott, you got that down pat, but I'm not there yet. And
well,
again,
that's right.
But even still, like, that's okay. I mean, everyone's journeys are different, and it's just fascinating, the things you learn when you just sit back and you not only watch others, but you start to watch yourself. And I know this sounds crazy, but that's an exercise it's almost like out of body, like
self-awareness.
Oh yeah, and
self-awareness.
I've mastered that. I will say it has been something I have really been trying to master.
That's awesome. What about you, Frank? Do you feel like your mental health has affected you as a performer, or do you think performing has helped your mental health or shaped it?
Yep. Performing has, because number one, I just come available. I'm just available to the work. I'm just available to what I need, to what I need to bring into that room. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot when the industry, when everyone around you is white, the director, sometimes the rehearsal pianist, and you're trying to figure, it's like that new barber, you know, that you go to, and you're like, I just want to temp, I don't want too much, but I just need a little bit off. That's the way I feel about it. I mean, just to be frank about it. And I just, it really has. I can say one role that really helped me a lot was Frankenfurter. It really did.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It really, really, really did. And let me tell you how. There was one moment in rehearsal, and the director asked, why did I want to create Rocky? And I said, because he's everything that I can't be. So everything that I can't be, I'm going to put in him. The fact that he can walk outside in Greenville.
I was going to say, can you dissect that a little bit more for people who may not be familiar with Rocky Horror?
Oh yeah.
Because that is a deep statement. that you
Well,
said.
well, Elliott, you explain it, and I chime in on that particular case.
So in Rocky Horror Picture Show, Dr. Frank Infurter is the main character. They are a person who expresses gender identity that is not heteronormative. They consider themselves a transvestite, which is a term that is no longer used in the vernacular. We now use maybe transgender or agender or non-gender conforming. So they're a person who they dress more feminine. They dress in a feminine space, but they may present male to some people. So the character that Frank was playing was that character. Now Rocky is a creation, kind of think Frankenstein, right? Rocky is this ideal personage of beauty and body and not really brains, but the ideal an ideal body image. Okay? So when Frank says that they created this person and the image, what was it, Frank? You said you created the person.
Yeah, I created this person in the way that I wanted to show up into the world. So I'll put all my efforts in in this guy.
Right.
And so in that
yeah, so in that, if you look at it outside of the realm of just the movie or the show or the musical theater piece, that is so powerful. It's such a different perspective. Saying, well, I created this person to be the person that I wish people would see me as walking through the streets so that I don't feel disrespected, underrated. That is a deep, profound thing, and we need to see more of that happening in the arts. For real.
I have to thank Michael Sablon and his team. I have to thank Michael Sablon and Jen and all of them at the Warehouse Theater in Greenville, South Carolina, because they knew what they were doing. And we were all sort of coming together when we were having meetings, and they were asking different things that I wanted to wear, from hair to this, to that, and the third. And I said, I want my Frankenfurter with dreads. Can we do it? Yes, we can do
fabulous.
It. Oh, okay. I want my Frankenfurter with this. Because I didn't want to do what the movie did. And let me tell you something, I had not seen the movie before I got the role. I had not watched the show before I had gotten the role. I just literally took these lines and said, I know what to do with this. And when I got it, I was like, huh? What? Are you serious? And so in that rehearsal process, the director asked me that question, and I say, he's everything that I can't be, but I put it all in him. And we literally stopped rehearsal for 30 minutes because people were crying. They had done this production so many times, but they didn't know the power of a Black man standing. I don't even know a Black man that has ever done it on Broadway.
I can't think
I've never seen it. And that's when I knew. I said, God, okay, so you're getting ready to elevate me here in Greenville, South Carolina. And they kept asking me questions like, oh, well, we usually have riots after this show, and are you scared? I said, scared of what? You chose me to do work, so I'm gonna do it. Because had I said no, had I been afraid.
We got a little broken up.
No.
He said no,
too.
had he been afraid.
And he was about to. I was
Come on,
baby. See,
I was
it's
ready
okay
to
though, because he's gonna come back on in just a moment. It's okay, because he's gonna come back on in just a moment.
That still grab is everything too.
But that's the thing. When you start putting Black people into roles and into spaces that are not specifically attached to a race or a gender, then you start to find the deeper meaning to these characters that were displayed. Frank, you got cut off, so
yeah,
it was just like the last 2 seconds of what you were about to say. But
the ending of that sermon, we were ready.
But I was just saying that.
Elliott, this is the thing with Elliott. Elliott prompts questions out of.
You can't really ask me questions like that because that's what I literally was like, you have to say, do you have to do this to me? Or because it really was a defining moment, and I still talk about that moment, and I'm thankful for that moment, and it can only go up from there.
Right. Definitely.
That was beautiful. It sounded like, Frank, you were pulling from something so genuine and authentic. And it was like the two worlds merging, not necessarily colliding, because it sounded like a beautiful experience was birthed because of it. And that is, I think that's what Black artistry, in my humble opinion, has always been about, whether it's hip hop, whether it's Blacks, doing what we did in the golden age of opera, whether it was Blacks on Broadway. There is something soulful and deep rooted that we always feel we have to pull from because it's important, because we don't know when we're going to get the next chance to do so. And when we do it, we serve and we slay and we sell out movie theaters and we make billions of dollars, hashtag. And it's just like, what part of artistry? why are we being slighted? I don't get it.
Exactly. A question I was going to ask was, how can we be in service of art itself? And I don't think that I need to ask that question, because all three of you have put so much of yourself out and put so much of your own personal experiences and how you've dealt with being in service to the art and relating it to yourself and relating it to your identity and your experiences. And I am so inspired, and I am so honored and so blessed to have had three of my good Judies on here, and to really get to hear aspects of your life that we don't normally talk about these things, y'all.
No.
We don't normally talk about these things. And we need to talk. We need to keep talking. We need to keep the conversation going. I mean, the topics that we talked about today, each one of those topics can be talked about for 2 hours, or more. I mean, you can have whole forums on each of these topics. And I want to thank you for being able to coagulate your responses and being able to share those pieces of yourself that we don't normally get to see. One thing that I asked each of my guests today was to provide an organization or a foundation that they felt connected to and wanted to highlight. These will be actually in our, I'll put this little ticker up. There's going to be a link tree in the comments on YouTube and on Facebook. And you'll be able to click that link tree, and it will take you to their specific organizations. I just wanted to go through and read a little bit about each person's organization, if that's okay. So the first one is from Freddie, and it's the organization SMYAL, SMYAL. So it's supporting and mentoring youth advocates and leaders. They support and empower lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning youth in Washington, D.C. metropolitan region. Through youth leadership, SMILE creates opportunities for LGBTQ youth to build confidence, develop critical life skills, and engage their peers in community through service and advocacy. They are committed to social change. They build, sustain, and advocate for programs, policies, and services that LGBTQ youth need as they grow into adulthood. That is beautiful. So thank you for highlighting that organization.
Yeah, and just one last thing that wasn't pointed out in that they also try to serve LGBT youth who have been displaced from their homes for various reasons, which we can all list in the multitude. But they also do provide housing and funding for LGBT youth when necessary.
Yes, so please click on that link tree to get for more information about them. The next organization is Frank's organization that he wanted to highlight, which is the Center for Black Equity. Their mission is to promote a multinational LGBTQ plus network dedicated to improving health and wellness opportunities, economic empowerment, and equal rights while promoting individual and collective work, responsibility, and self-determination. Their vision is to build a global network of individuals, allies, and community-based organizations and prides dedicated to achieving equality and social justice for Black LGBTQ plus communities through economic equity, health equity, and social equity, which is beautiful. Frank, is there anything you'd like to say in response to your organization?
Definitely go support. I'm definitely going to go donate.
Yes. And last but not least, we have Jermaine's organization, which is one that we are all familiar with, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. Their vision is to ensure a society in which all individuals, catch that, all individuals have equal rights without discrimination based on race. Their objectives are to ensure political, educational, social, and economic equity for all citizens, to achieve equality of rights and eliminate race prejudice among citizens of the U.S., to remove all barriers of racial discrimination through democratic processes, to seek enactment and enforcement of federal, state, and local laws securing civil rights, to inform the public of adverse effects of racial discrimination, and to educate persons as to their constitutional rights, and to take lawful action to secure the exercise thereof, and to take any other lawful action in furtherance of these objectives, consistent with their Articles of Incorporation and their Constitution. Now, we all know that this organization has done many, many, many things for people of color, obviously Black people. Is there anything that you'd like to say in regards to the organization NAACP, Jermaine?
Mic drop.
Well, thanks.
That's real loud.
So, remember, there will be a link tree in the comments below on YouTube and Facebook. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. Like I said, this conversation could be continued on for hours. And I just so much appreciate having you here. I want to give a little shout out to
Hours.
my... Oh, what? Huh? I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
I think he was
He was
saying
agreeing with
hours. Yeah.
He was echoing.
So
He was like, you're ready for a fight.
No, I didn't hear what he's. I didn't hear it. So I didn't know.
What was that?
What? What'd you say? So I wanted to give a little shout out to Michael Lewis, who has been backstage producing, who has been backstage producing and helping as we go along, who is the founder of All Compass Projects, who What's the T is through. That's the ACP and What's the T. I'd also like to thank Cody Ray Cahoe for helping come up with the idea for What's the T and the T moniker of talking about what the different T's are that we'd like to highlight. Again, this discussion was about intersectionality and identity. And for next week, we're actually going to take a little break. We're going to take a little pause. We're going to kind of see what we'd like to highlight in the future. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for watching. And that we appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yes. Love you so much.
Love y'all.